The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Kelly Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of the greatest state in the Union, to New York, with Boston, Massachusetts. My guest, Jerry Feitelberg, is from there.
Hey, Ralph. Good to be with you.
We have something to celebrate today. And I'm wondering if celebration is a good word for it, in lieu of the embarrassment to this country that Mr. Trump has put us through. And, you know, it ain't over. This guy can run for president, which he's doing, be elected, go to prison, and still be president. Is that scary?
Nothing. Yes, it is scary, and it's nothing to celebrate. What the former president is accused of doing could have really contributed to serious problems for the United States and for other countries around the world. And we don't know to the extent of who he showed the documents to, who looked at the documents, why he took the documents. Some people are speculating that he took the documents because, everything does is self-serving. And it has to do with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's business. And he knew that the Saudi Arabians is a place where he wanted to do business. And you have to look at the possibility that there was information about Iran that the Saudis wanted or needed or could do. And also the fact that several months after Trump left office, his son-in-law gets $2 billion for a hedge fund startup, and Jared Kushner has no experience in hedge funds. And so these are some of the things, reasons that why he may have taken the documents. He may have also taken the documents to negotiate with foreign powers in order to get better deals or possible deals for businesses in those countries, particularly in Russia. You know that he thought Putin was a friend, and Putin was playing him like a violin. And, Putin, I guess, thought he was a useful tool. And it wouldn't surprise me if he would, give the information to the Russians about what our nuclear capabilities are. The documents included weaknesses in the American defense system. They had nuclear plans for other countries. There were things in there that people the spies would love to get their hands on. And this guy has them, and he was reckless. He knew what he was doing, and he put the country in a terrible position, the United States.
Well, just from the standpoint of national spirit, it puts the country in a horrible state just knowing that a former president accused of federal crimes. It's an embarrassment.
Yes, and it's an embarrassment to the world is looking at us and saying, how could this have happened? And it happened because of the setup in the election system where a person can lose the popular vote but get elected president, and that's what happened. In the two elections that he's run in, he's lost the popular vote both times. But the first time, because the way the votes are structured, the electoral votes in Wyoming carry more weight than the electoral votes in California, if you can believe that. There's 39 million people.
Both sides know the rules before the election.
Yeah.
So my point is, was Hillary that lame a strategist to let this happen, or is there something else behind it?
Yeah, there were some problems with the Clinton campaign. I think she took for granted that she was going to win in Wisconsin and that she was going to win in Michigan or Minnesota or one of those states that traditionally had voted democratically, but she didn't go there, and that may have been a factor. She may have assumed that she was going to get the votes. We can't cry over spilled milk. She didn't get elected. She didn't get the electoral votes. There were 6 or 7 states were the swing states, and those states determine who's going to be the president in the election. So, those states are Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and I can't think of the other one, Pennsylvania. So those are states that are very, very important, and that the bean counters know that pretty much the way California is going to go, the way Oregon is going to go, Washington is going to go, Massachusetts is going to go. They know the way Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida, maybe Georgia, are going to go. Those are toss-up states, and the Democratic Party is going to have to get their ducks in a row in 2024 and hope to make inroads into the and get more people to vote democratically if the Biden wants to stay in office. So those are things that the Democrats are going to have to consider. Do you think, Jerry, that the Democrats will be at least considering a different man to run? Given the importance of all of this, Biden is starting to look like a boob, and it's scary. Yeah, it's hard to say. He did come out on the right end of the debt ceiling battle. There's not going to be any issue about the debt ceiling for 2 years, and the cuts that they're proposing are insignificant. So, and we can ride it up for 2 years. The Democrats are going, and I think this is very similar to what happened in Watergate in 1973 and 74. Nixon resigned on August 9, 1974, and then he was pardoned a couple of months later by Gerald Ford. But in the general election in 1976, Jimmy Carter, who was a Democrat, and when people didn't know too much about him, beat the incumbent, which was Gerald Ford. And so it's very, very possible that a lot of people are not going to vote Republican in the 2024 election because of the bad behavior of the Republicans.
You know what scares me, Jerry? That Johnny Lunchbucket and his wife aren't concerned about the debt ceiling, about inflation, what it's going to take to educate their kids, this, that, and the other thing. Health care, they're not, everybody that they get the taken care of, they weren't going to go into default. And that's a year from now. So he's not going to get that much credit in the election for that. There's a lot of things that I'll start with Afghanistan. That was a total fuck up. Total.
Yeah, as painful as it was the right thing to do. And we've been out of Afghanistan for a while. There's nothing more that we can do. No one has ever come. It was the right thing to do, but the exit plan was horrible. The execution was terrible. The execution was terrible because we lost too many soldiers. But but it's done, and you know, we can't look back. We have to learn from our mistakes and make sure that if we ever do get involved with them, we have an exit plan from these countries.
My point is Biden going to take the wrath of that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that the country has to look forward. He has to have a plan for what the next 4 years are going to be. Yes, we're going to get inflation. We're going to continue to have measures to keep inflation under check. We're going to make sure that we have health care for everyone, expand Obamacare, expand Medicaid, which is something that the Republicans don't want to do. And the other thing that he has to do is that he has to show that he is, while he's going to be 86 at the time of the election, that 82 at the time of the election. He'd be 86 when he finishes his term. That he's capable of doing, and people my age, a lot of people my age, their mental acuity starts to decline, and plus the rigors of being a president. It's not an easy job, and we all at this age we have physical infirmities that slow us down. Now Biden has been in good health. He watches his weight, looks like he's okay. And he's always made gaps, but I think he's smart enough, and he's been in the Senate, and he's been a vice president, now president. He knows what is required of him to do the job, and at the moment, he would be the preferable choice over any Republican at this point in time. Now, we know that 30% of the country is hard right wing. That you could lay the truth out in front of them, and they're not going to believe it, and they're going to vote Republican. So the work has to be done with the Democrats, who will stay behind Biden, and plus the independents who may have been turned off by what Trump has done, and of course in the campaign that will come up if Trump is the nominee, then they will have to showcase all the bad things that he's done. So I don't know what's going to happen. I can't predict him. He may not get the nomination, but if he does, I don't think he's going to beat Biden.
With that in mind, let's examine the three major candidates, maybe four of them, if you include Alexei, whatever her name is. But there's Pence, there's the governor of New Jersey, and Chris Christie, and there's the DeSantis from Florida. And will they do nothing but split the party in shambles, or will one of them take over?
Well, what I see with DeSantis is that he's operating in a state government in Florida, and he's acting as an autocrat. They've been banning books. They have problems with "Don't Say Gay." They're not treating transgender people well. They're making it difficult for transgender people for whatever reason. And abortion. They want to have abortion. Stop all abortions, and you can't do anything after 6 weeks. Well, most women don't even know they're pregnant. So they have a very repressive state. So that may fly okay in Florida, but it may not fly nationally. And DeSantis is Trump light. It's Trump 2 without the Trump's baggage at this point, but he's building some baggage on his own. So DeSantis, I'm not sure he doesn't have any charisma whatsoever. So I'm not sure that he's going to be the standard bearer. Chris Christie has a track record. He was a former prosecutor. He speaks well. He's went on the attack. He went to attack Trump the other day. But Chris Christie is a Republican, and he's going to try and portray himself as a moderate. But I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. You know, he weighs close to 250 pounds or 300 pounds. You're not going to throw him very far.
You're
So
a big guy, Jerry. You can make 2 trips. You can make 2 trips for the bastard.
So those and Pence has got baggage. The MAGA crowd hate him. They would have killed him if they could have on January 6th. So he's not going to get their votes. And a lot of the people who looked at him and said, you were a lapdog for Trump for 4 years, and now you're saying he's a bad guy and you want to run? We're not going to support you. So I don't think Pence has got a prayer.
Excuse me. Christie was a lapdog for the man.
Yes.
Contracted COVID, and then he got pissed.
That's right. I forgot that.
Yeah. So they're all scumbags. How about that? To wrap up, should we be happy overall that he's indicted?
Well, I think it's very important for the world to see that when we say the rule of law applies to everyone, that we mean it. We don't have 2 tiers of justice. Trump thought he was above the law. Ever since he was a young man, he's gotten away with everything, and he's never had to pay a price for his bad behavior. If you go back to the 1973, Trump and his father were investigated by the Justice Department for failing to rent property to black people, and they discriminated against black people, and they had to pay. I think they had to pay a fine for that. Trump during the Vietnam era, and he's almost the same age you are, Ralph. He'll be 77 on the 14th. Trump had a doctor. They falsified records saying that he had bone spurs to get him out of the draft. So that was number one. So look at his career. Who did he have for his attorney? His mentor was Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn, who served as counsel for Joe McCarthy. And I remember Roy Cohn back in the days in 1954 when they had the Army hearings and McCarthy Army hearings. And Roy Cohn was you looked at him, he was evil personified. Joe McCarthy would come up with statements like there's 200 communists in the army but couldn't produce evidence of one. He would make these statements. And I don't know if you remember, but Judge Joseph Welch, who and near the end, he says, I finally realized how cruel you are as a person, Mr. Senator McCarthy. Have you no decency at all? And so
I remember that statement, yes. Have you no decency at all? And he just glared. That's...
yeah. And Joe McCarthy died a few years later, and no one lamented his death. And Roy Cohn was, when he was working with the Justice Department, he was a young lawyer. Roy Cohn, that Julius Rosenberg was convicted and executed for passing spies about the atomic weapons to the Russians. Well, Roy Cohn insisted that his wife Ethel also be executed, and they went along with that. She may not have had anything to do with it, and Ethel was the mother of 3 children. So that was Roy Cohn in action. And Roy Cohn was Trump's mentor, and he was working for his father. And Cohn also represented the mob, the mafia in New York. And Cohn told Trump never to admit that you're wrong. Never admit that you're at fault. Never say you're sorry. And if if you lose, never admit it, and say that the reason you lost because the contest was rigged. So that was his training, and you saw what happened with Trump after the 2020 election. Most politicians, in fact, in my lifetime, every candidate that's lost an election congratulates the winner, and if they want to run again, they have 4 years to get ready to run again, to try again, to run for the presidency. Richard Nixon lost in 1960, and he lost the governorship, running for the governorship against Pat Brown in 1962. He didn't say the election was rigged. He went out and worked for the Republican Party, and in 1964, he helped the Republican Party gain seats in the Senate and the House, and he became a candidate. And in 1968, and because of the Lyndon Johnson and they trying to get out of the Vietnam War, he became the Republican candidate, and he beat Hubert Humphrey in the election in 1968. And same thing, people lose elections, and they say they congratulate the winner and move on. Not this guy. This guy spent several months, and he's been going on for 2.5 years, yelling that the election was stolen, that it was rigged, with no shreds of evidence, just saying that, that Roy Cohn just said, tell him we won and never admit that you lost. And to this day, Trump can't admit that he lost the election. He just keeps saying it's rigged. And he has no evidence. He's lost lawsuit after lawsuit trying to overturn the election, and the Justice Department is not done with him because they got all the J6 stuff, the January 6th stuff, be there on January 6th will be wild, interference with the certification of the election, the riots. Oh my gosh, and the conspiracies with the different lawyers to send to challenge the elections and try and have the elections sent back to the states where there's 50 states, and each state then has one vote in the House of Representatives, and there were more Republican states than there were Democratic states. They would then Trump would have been installed as president, but that didn't happen. But they did enough, and there was a judge in California that said John Eastman and Donald Trump, more likely than not, were involved in a conspiracy to overturn the election. So those are the things that you got. And then people have to remember. People have to remember
the things he's afraid of. Georgia should be so clear. They have a tape of him asking for the votes. Now, what takes so long to put the case together based on that evidence?
I don't know. Maybe more wide-ranging. We'll know in 2 months because Fani Willis has made it quite clear that Trump is the only president to be firstly indicted in a state criminal case, the only president to be indicted in a federal case, the only president who has been found guilty of being a serial abuser, a sexual abuser, and has been impeached twice. That's his record, and he's going to be indicted again in Georgia in 2 months. So why would anyone support this guy? How could any Republican stand behind him? I know several of them have to say it because for whatever reason, but they're wrong. They know that this guy is going to go down. He's unbelievable. He had Trump University. What happened in Trump University? He had to pay a $25 million fine. because he was misleading the students. What happened with his charities? Remember, he had these charities, and he was taking money out of the charities to pay for a portrait of himself, and the money wasn't going to the charities. They were diverting monies, and they lost that case, and the Trump family can't be involved in any charities in New York. He's lost. His company was convicted of 17 counts of submitting false statements and false reports. His chief financial advisor was found guilty, went to Rikers Island. The attorney general in the state of New York has a civil case for making false statements and evading taxes by making false statements about the values of properties and then devaluating them when it came to getting their taxes. So there's so much going on in Trump's against Trump, and it's all coming to roost. And why would anyone want this man, anyone near the Oval Office? You know, Lynn Cheney, a woman who's a conservative.
As conservative as they come.
Yeah. I wouldn't agree with her politics, but I have to admire her for her courage for serving on the January 6th committee and saying, and she said, Donald Trump must never be allowed anywhere near the Oval Office. It cost her congressional seat, but she did the right thing. And this is what is important. This is what is important for people to do. She's an example of, there is a price to pay sometimes for doing the right thing, and she paid the price. But she, you have to give her kudos for doing it.
Absolutely. And she may not be done politically.
No, and as I said, I wouldn't agree with her policies, but I would talk to her and we could have a rational discussion. And I would ask her to show me why I should change my position, and she would have me argue why I should change her mind on a position. That's the way it should be. That's what debate is about.
Do you remember, Jerry, and I'm sure you do, when politics were about meeting in the middle? And because now you meet in the middle, nobody wants to do it, and rightfully so. I don't want to make the middle the right wing. But it was so much simpler then. Jerry, thank you for your analysis. It's well appreciated. And you put it succinctly and without any prejudice. You're not calling anybody out that shouldn't be called out. And I appreciate it. Thanks, Jerry. Great show.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it too, Ralph. You have to remember, we're talking about there's going to be a trial in a court of law. Facts matter. You can't make facts up. You can't say all these things. And you have to go, you look at the documents and the evidence, and you make a decision based on that. It has nothing to do with, being left or right. It has to do with what's on that piece of paper, what happened, the witnesses, the documentation, and Jack Smith has done his homework, and he's got his ducks lined up in a row. Right now, that 49-page indictment, I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to read it on my computer. Is a roadmap for what they're going to do, and the evidence is overwhelming. I really believe that Trump is going to be convicted.
Beautiful. Jerry, I can't thank you enough. Let's do it again real soon, and hopefully next time we'll talk about baseball, and there will be a surprise announcement out of wherever that there's no phantom runner in extra innings, and eminent domain may take over and keep the A's in Oakland. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be wonderful. The Nevada legislature was supposed to meet on Thursday, or the Senate, and that no one showed up because they didn't want to deal with the issue. From what I understood, there was 8 for the proposal, 8 against, and the other 5 were undecided. So who knows? The Oakland may have a chance if it falls through, and wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh, it certainly would. It would make our colleague on A's baseball, our former colleague, Nancy Finley, it would make her very happy.
Yes, it would. It would make Nancy and a lot of other people. The thing is that if Fisher, if he can't go to Nevada, and Cavill and Fisher screwed up going to Nevada like they've screwed up everything else, we'll have to sell. They have to go to Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball is going to have to do what NFL did with Dan Snyder. Snyder, you got to sell, and he did. And MLB Manfred's going to say, Fisher, you can't be an owner anymore. You can't handle it. We want someone else in, and that will be that. Hopefully.
All right. Let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. How about that?
Sounds good.
Jerry, till that time, Jerry, be good and be healthy. Regards to Isla, you guys are hanging in there. It's been a rough year physically for you both. And it's you have what I call Invictus, and keep it going.
Thank you, Ralph. Great show.
Good show indeed. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Jerry Feitelberg is a most treasured guest. Thank you again.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.